Salutations, Internet. I'm Sir Rebellion. If you were active on the Internet in the early to late 2010s, you've most certainly heard about or read some cult classic creepypastas such as Slenderman, Jeff the Killer, Laughing Jack, Borrasca, or the Russian Sleep Experiment. There's one I believe to be the most influential creepypasta ever written, which offered a new, unique format that was never done before and was able to create an entire world and lore in less than a paragraph. That story to me is Candle Cove. Today I'll be reading and sharing my theory on Candle Cove, and without further ado, let's get into it. Now, a cool little fact about Candle Cove before we actually start is that while I was doing the research for this video, I actually found out that somebody had made their own real version of Candle Cove based off what was told about in the story, which I found really interesting. I'll put a link to that if you want to watch it. Fair warning, it's a little bit disturbing, but I mean, it's not that bad. I'm just gonna put that out there that it's puppets and like it's kind of weird as this eerie vibe to it. But they definitely mastered almost everything that was said within the whole creepypasta, and which I really like about the story as well is how short they keep it, but how much they cover. Anyway, I don't want to stretch this out too much. The story is about an 8-minute read. I'm going to go ahead and read it, and then I have a little theory on what's actually going on within the story. Anyway, I'll also leave a link if you want to read it yourself, just down below, description, and let's get into it. So, our story starts on a website called the Net Nostalgia Forum, although it's not actually on that site, but, you know. I have a cross on my desk and it just fell over. I cannot describe how terrified I am now. You know what? It's a horror story. We got the horror theme now. I might get murdered in this video. Who knows? Anyway, Net Nostalgia Forum on the Creepypasta website. Let's get into it. Our first post comes from someone named SkyShale033 with the subject Candle Cove, local kids show. I'm going to start reading now. Does anybody remember this kid show? It was called Candle Cove. It must have been 6 or 7. I've never found a reference to it anywhere, so I think it was on a local television station around 1971 or 1972. I lived in Ironton at the time, but I don't remember which station. But I do remember it was on a weird time at like 4 p.m. Then someone responds with, my mouse is not working. Then Mike Painter 65 responds with, it seems really familiar to me. I grew up outside of Ashland. I was 9 years old in 72. Candle Cove. Was it about pirates? I remember a pirate marionette at the mouth of a cave talking to a little girl. Then we have another response from our original poster. Yes, okay, I'm not crazy. I remember Pirate Piercy. I was always kind of scared of him. He looked like he was built from parts of other dolls. Really low budget. His head was an old porcelain baby doll. I looked like an antique that didn't belong to the body. I don't remember what station it was. I don't think it was WTSF. And then we have a new person, Jaren2005, who then goes back and says, sorry to resurrect this old thread, but I know exactly what show you mean, Sky Shell. I think Candle Cove was ran for a couple months in 71, not 72. I was 12 and I watched it a few times with my brother. It was Channel 58, whatever station that was. My mom wouldn't let me switch it after the news. Let me see what I remember. Now we have this whole thing. 3 people have remembered Candle Cove and are talking about it. They're not really sure on the exact details. We can get with 71 in, I believe, Oregon. Anyway, we continue on with the post. It took place in Candle Cove, and it was about a little girl who imagined herself to be friends with pirates, and the pirate ship was the laughingstock. Pirate Piercy wasn't a very good pirate because he got scared too easily. And there was Calliope music, constantly playing. Don't remember the girl's name, Janice or Jade or something? Think it was Janice. Then, the original poster again, Sky Shale, responds to that post and says, thank you, Jaren. Memories flooded back when you mentioned the laughingstock in Channel 58. I remember the bow of the ship was shaped like a wooden smiling face, and the jaw of the ship was submerged. It looked like it was shallow in the sea, and it only had that awful Ed Wynn voice and laugh. I especially remember the jarring it was when they switched from the wooden plastic model to the foam puppet version of the head. Then, also, sorry with the mispronunciation of the head, I have a bit of an accent. And then, Mike Painter originally responds, he says, I remember now too. Do you remember this part, Sky Shell? You have to go inside! That's my best voice for how I feel like a pirate ship would sound. My apologies if I'm wrong on that. I'm not a pirate ship. Don't cancel me. Then Sky Shell again responds, Mike, I got a chill reading that. Yes, I remember. That's what the ship always told Piercy when there's a spooky place you had to go in, like a cave or a dark room where the treasure was. And the camera would push in on Laughingstock's face with each pause. You have to go inside! With his two eyes askew, that was flopping foam jaw, and that fishing line that opened and closed it. Ugh, it was just so cheap and awful. You guys remember the villain? He had a face that was like a handlebar mustache above really tall, narrow teeth. This is where we get into the more, like, disturbing parts of it. And then, I'm not even joking, this is my favorite part of the entire creepypasta. Kevin Hart, as in the actor, responds, I honestly thought the villain was a pirate Piercy. I was about 5 when the show was on. Nightmare fuel. Then Jaren again responds, that wasn't a villain. The puppet with the mustache was the horrible villain Cyclac. Horace Horrible. He had a monocle too, but on top of that mustache, I think he only had what meant to be one eye. But yeah, the villain wasn't another marionette. The Skin Talker. I can't believe they let us watch it back then. Also, I said Talker. It's Skin Taker, not Talker. My apologies. Kevin Hart again responds, Jesus H. Christ, the Skin Taker. What kind of a kid show were we watching? I seriously could not look at the screen when the Skin Taker showed up. He just descended out of nowhere on his strings. Just a dirty skeleton wearing that brown top hat and cape, and his glass eyes were too big for his skull. Christ almighty. I feel bad saying Christ right now after the cross fell. I don't feel safe. Then Sky Shell responds again. Wasn't that his top hat and cloak all sewn up crazily? Wasn't that supposed to be children's skin? Which, now reading this, actually is probably the weirdest thing that someone could do for a children's TV show. You'll understand in a moment, but still. And then Mike Painter responds again. Yeah, I think so. I remember his mouth didn't open in his clothes. His jaw just slid back and forth. I remember the little girl said, why does your mouth move like that? And the Skin Taker didn't look at the girl, but to the camera and said, to grind your skin! I'm giving him the pirate ship the same voice. And then Sky Shore responded again, I'm so relieved that other people remember this terrible show. By the way, the reason there's a pause, just had to scroll down. I used to have this awful memory, a bad dream I had where the opening jingle ended, the show faded in from black, and all the characters were there, but the camera were just cutting to each of their faces. They were just screaming, and the puppets and marionettes were flaying spectacularly, and just screaming and screaming. The girl was moaning and crying, and she'd been through hours of this. I woke up many times for this nightmare. I wet the bed when I had it. Kevin Hart responds again. I don't think that was a dream. I remember that. I remember that was an episode. Sky Show responds, no, not possible. There was no plot or anything. I mean, literally just standing in place crying and screaming for the whole show. Kevin Hart responds, maybe I'm manufacturing memory, because you said that, but I swear to God I remember seeing what you described, and they just screamed. And then Jared responds again, oh God, yes, the girl, Janice, I remember seeing her shake and the Skin Taker screaming through his gnashing teeth, the jaw careening so wildly I thought it would come off his wire hinges. I turned it off, and the last time I watched, I ran to tell my brother, and we didn't have the courage to turn it back on. Mike Painter responds, I visited my mom today at the nursing home. I asked her about when I was little in the early 70s, when I was 8 or 9, if she remembered a kids show called Cove. She said that she was surprised I could remember that, and I asked why. She said, because I used to think it was so strange that you said, I'm gonna go watch Cove now, Mom, and then you would just tune the TV to static and just watch dead air for 30 minutes. You had a big imagination with your little pirate show. And that's it. That is the ending of Cove. Now, I think the ending to it is probably the best thing they could have possibly done, with all these details with, like, the Skin Taker, Pirate Piercy, Janice, and all this, and they finally go, yeah, see, it never happened, you imagined it, it was all static. Now, my personal theory on this story is that it's involved with audio frequencies that only children can hear, or something that could be used to create hallucinations. Why? I don't know, CIA, something. The theory is not very great, that's just the best I could come up with. But the story is relatively open-ending, so it could be anything. Anyway, now that I finished this video, I am going to go slam down an entire can of sweet tea. And truly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day.